Welcome back to another episode of NBA Weekly. I am your host, Pee Wee the Plug, one further through the wire, #1 Knicks fan in the world, aka Mr. Know-It-All. Now, I'll be honest, I planned on doing the NBA Weekly this week, and I had so much to talk about already. You know, we got Kawhi's injury, Kyrie's injury, then we have both of their teammates responding in Game 5's, Kevin Durant with a historical night and performance against the Bucks to give them a 3-2 lead. We got Paul George responding in Game 5 with the Clippers, having them take a 3-2 lead. We got James Harden returning to the Nets lineup after Kyrie's injury. You know, we have Chris Paul and a COVID situation going on there. We got the Hawks coming back on the Philadelphia 76ers and taking a 3-2 lead there unexpectedly. The hack of Ben and him missing 10 free throws in a game. We had so much to already talk about and address for this episode of NBA Weekly. But I wake up to news that makes me push all of that information and all of those things that happened earlier this week on a back burner. And now I have to turn my attention and make this episode about the trade. We have a trade between the Boston Celtics. Shout out to Brad Stevens. It's his first trade as a man in the front office and not in the coaching seat. But we have the Boston Celtics and the Oklahoma City Thunder making a trade. Of course, Sam Presti has to be involved with the trading. And already before the combine, before the draft lottery, which is pretty unusual, we have a big trade. So the Boston Celtics are going to be sending Kemba Walker to the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're also sending a first-round pick, the 16th overall pick, and a 2025 second-round pick to OKC. OKC is sending to Boston Moses Brown, the nice big who showed some potential with OKC. They're also sending Al Horford back to Boston, and then they're going to be sending a 2023 second-round pick to Boston as well. So we got some second-round pick swaps. Underlining stories as though the Boston Celtics are giving OKC a first-round pick in the teens at 16 to unload and shed Kemba Walker's salary. So Kemba's salary was so important for them to shed that they end up giving a first-round pick away for it. We'll get to that and that side of the trade, but I think we have to start off by talking with OKC because this is a team now who's projected to have the 4th overall pick, which is their own. They could also get the 5th overall pick from Houston if it lands at 5. They get the 16th pick from Boston, and then they already have the 18th pick from Miami. They have the 35th pick, the 36th pick, and then the 55th pick. So the Oklahoma City Thunder are stocked up on picks. It's going to be a very interesting draft night for them. You know, I've already gotten tweets from different people and fans. Are they going to trade up? We don't know what they're going to do until we see the results of the draft lottery. You know what I'm saying? So if they are in a range at 3 or something or 4 or, you know, whatever, then yeah, maybe they'll trade. But for all we know, their projected 4th pick could jump up 1. And they can still get Houston's pick at 5. And then they still would have 16. You know what I mean? So even if they're not trying to jump up, it leaves the door of options open for them. They'll have plenty of options and plenty of opportunities to work with. You also got to think that the Kemba Walker situation for them isn't set in stone because they do potentially have they do have so many picks and could potentially have 2 top 5 picks. I would assume that they would want to take a guard and they would want to put a young guard in that backcourt with Shea and continue to have this youth movement going on and potentially try to search around the league and see if there's anybody willing to take Kemba. Just to be honest with you, I mean, for you to have 16, 18, 35, 36, and 55, you have a lot to work with. You know what I mean? The same way that Boston gave them a first to take Kemba, they have potentially 4 first-round picks, 2 in the top 10, and then the other 2 in the teens to potentially unload Kemba somewhere else too. Because we know that that's how the Oklahoma City Thunder work. Right, like when they got the trade last year and they got Kelly Oubre and then they traded Kelly Oubre right to the Warriors. Like they always get a player and then try to push him off. And in the report of the initial trade that came out from Woj and everybody was basically saying that they were going to work with Kemba the same way they worked with everybody else. How soon they plan on working with him, how they're going to work with him. Will it be like CP3 where he's going to play You know, and then they'll trade him at the end of the next year or during the deadline. I don't know, but they did say that they're going to work with him. So that kind of leaves me optimistic to start talking about the Thunder with Kemba Walker being on their roster, because this is a youth movement and because they do have 2 potential top 5 picks. I am going to go out and guess that they're going to try to get a guard. And especially if they can land 2 of those top 5 picks, if they actually do land it, it could be a situation where they can hit the lottery seriously and find themselves with a young big like Evan Mobley and potentially a guard, you know, a Jalen Suggs. If they hit the lottery, then obviously they got Cade Cunningham and Shea in the backcourt. But it just leaves Oklahoma City with a lot of different options. It leaves them with options. And even outside the 2 top 10 picks, top 5 picks, you still do have 16 and 18, which, man, if you were desperately trying to get off Kemba Walker, you could do the same thing Boston just did with you. Hey, I got Kemba and I got an 18th overall pick. I got Kemba, the 18th overall pick, and I got the 36th overall pick. So, you know, you take Kemba and you get a first-round pick and a very early second-round pick, and boom. You know what I mean? Now you go somewhere and you get an extra picks for that next year's or whatever. But I just don't see them bringing on the 2 potential top 5 picks, 16th, 18th, 35, 36, and 55. That's 7 picks. I don't see the Oklahoma City Thunder drafting 7 players and bringing them onto their roster. They already have Shea, Baisley, Maladon, Poku, you know what I mean, Lou Dort, and some guys that are not even coming to my mind. You know, Shfi Mikhailuk. They have a nice young roster that they like a lot. You know what I mean? And I think bringing on 7 players is nobody brings on 7 players. There's too many rookies to bring on. You know what I mean? And they're trying to have minutes for, because you got to understand. Again, this is all if they get these picks, because the Houston Rockets could definitely land in the top 4, and you know Oklahoma City only gets 1 top 5 pick. But you got to understand, if you're bringing in 2 top 5 picks, they need playing time. Usually the 16th and 18th overall picks are going to need playing time, and so that's already 4 players that would need playing time when you already have a group of guys who deserve minutes. You know what I mean? Shea is a 35 plus minute player. Lou Dort is 32 plus minute player. Poku is a guy that you're going to want to give 30 plus minutes to in his sophomore season because of what he was showed he could do in the first year. Darius Baisley deserves minutes. Maladon deserves minutes. It was somebody else I was forgetting that I wanted to name because I know OKC fans like him. Now I got to go and look at the Oklahoma City Thunder roster really quick because my mind is going blank. But I want to just show that there's no way that they plan on keeping every single pick. They kind of can't, to be honest with you. I've never seen a team bring in seven draft picks. So, you know, it's just not enough time. So right, okay, you got Poku that you're giving minutes to. Shea is getting minutes. Lou Dort is getting minutes. Darius Baisley is getting minutes. Theo Maladon is getting minutes. Shfi may get some minutes. Isaiah Roby could still get some minutes. Ty Jerome, Kenrich Williams. You know what I mean? Like, they have a good group of guys to give minutes to. Tony Bradley. And then you got to understand, if you do get the top 5 picks, and you do bring in, let's just say hypothetically, they get Evan Mobley and Jalen Suggs, right? Those are 2 guys you're going to want to give minutes to. And so at 16-18, when you look at last year's draft, the 16-18 range was around like the Saddiq Bey type players who you wanted to give minutes to. Those are still solid players who you want to give minutes to as rookies. You know what I mean? Like, rookies at the teen part of the draft are deserving of minutes just as much as sometimes the top players. So we look at last year's draft, and from 15 to 20, you got Cole Anthony, Isaiah Stewart, Pokashevsky, Josh Green, Saddiq Bey, and Precious Achiuwa. The only guy that didn't really play a lot was Josh Green, right? But I mean, Cole Anthony got a lot of minutes from the Magic. Isaiah Stewart got minutes from the Pistons. Poku got minutes with the OKC, of course. Saddiq Bey got minutes. Precious got minutes. You know what I mean? Like, guys from 15 to 20, you're going to see some decent minutes, man. You're going to see some decent minutes. Even last year in the draft before that with Zion 15 from 20 was Sekou Doumbouya from the Pistons, Chuma Okeke, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Gogo Badadze, Lucas Samanik from the Spurs, and then Matisse Thybulle, and then Brandon Clark, and Grant Williams and Darius Bazley was right behind him. And like Nickeil Walker was in an unfortunate situation where he had a guard-heavy team, but he showed his ass in preseason and showed he deserved minutes. Chuma Okeke would have got minutes in Orlando, but obviously he was coming off an injury when he got drafted. Sekou did get minutes. Gogo Badadze was behind two bigs with Miles Turner and Sabonis. Same thing with Semantic with the Spurs behind Aldridge. But Matisse Thybulle got minutes. Brandon Clark got minutes. Grant Williams got minutes. These are guys that really got real minutes. So if you're trying to bring in 7 rookies, it takes up half of your roster. Honestly, it honestly takes up half of your roster. And then the guys that aren't at the back end, the first 4 picks that you're going to have, are all going to be guys that should be getting 20-plus minutes at the least. So I just don't see them doing that. I think it leaves the door of flexibility open for them. And I think that's a good door to have open, because Oklahoma City they're a youth movement. And I like it. I love what they're doing. They also have the option of keeping Kemba. You know what I mean? That door and that opportunity is still open there. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know how many buyers are going to be out there. But again, that's what I'm saying. If you're Oklahoma City Thunder and you have the surplus of picks, you can easily lure a team into taking him if you can give them a first-round pick as well. You know what I mean? I think that softens the blow, so to speak, in any trade with Kemba Walker. He doesn't really, his deal is shrinking up. It's not that much time on his deal. It may only be 2 years left on Kemba's deal. We can look that up right now just to make sure he becomes a free agent. Yeah, he has a, let's see, is that a player? Yeah, he has a player option in 2022, which he'll accept. So we played this year. He has next year on his deal, and he has a deal after that. So he has 2 years left on his deal, because he's going to probably, his player option is for $37 million. So we want to take that. We know he's going to take that. But again, it's a lot shorter than having him with 3 or 4 years left. So it softens the blow, and if they can make that happen, I think they can also get something back in return that will fit them more. So something towards the timeline. I understand the money matching is another aspect. Who out there has money to be able to match with Kemba? So we'll see. Now for the Boston Celtics and their behalf of this trade, I also like it for them. I mean, it's not ideal to give up a first-round pick, but you got to put everything in a context. Everything in the NBA, or a lot of things in life, but especially in sports and the NBA specifically, everything is about context, right? Don't let people fool you into thinking anything is done without putting everything with context. Yes, trading a first-round pick is not ideal, but context. You're trading the first-round pick to get rid of the 36, 35, 34, all the way up to $37 million that you would have to be paying Kemba. And for the simple fact that you have not guys who are as talented as Kemba Walker, but could fill his role if you're the Celtics. Marcus Smart can hold down a point guard position. He can do that. He can play point guard. It's what he's came up as in high school and college at Oklahoma State, all the way into his early years at the pro. He came in as a point guard. He's just scrappy and talented enough to be able to slide over to the 2. But you can get away with playing Marcus Smart at the point guard. You have a nice draft pick that you got last year who played really well with Peyton Pritchard. Is he Kemba Walker? No, but he's steady. He can hit outside shots. He has experience from the college level, so he's not a young pup. He actually has basketball IQ and knowledge, and I think you can get away with playing him 20-plus minutes a game. He will get attacked defensively, but it just comes with it. Kemba Walker could be a guy that got attacked defensively as well. But the point is, you have guys who can fill his void in his role. You now open up your salary cap to be able to put the proper team around Tatum and Brown. The Celtics don't need to go star chasing and star hopping to replace Kemba Walker's star role, but they need to take this salary opening and sprinkle it around to be able to fill a sustainable team around Brown and Tatum. And you still have a trade chip in Marcus Smart if that's the route you wanted to go. You know what I mean? If you did want to go crazy and make some more moves, Marcus Smart is a trade chip. Robert Williams is a trade piece. But I think they win because it gives them some flexibility and some options as well. I like Kemba. I like the idea of bringing him to Boston, but the reality is it didn't go how anybody thought it would have gone because of the knee issues. And they just needed a little bit more. They needed more. They didn't need a guy who was going to take up $35+ million of their salary cap. They kind of needed to shred that down and be able to spread it across the table to go get some depth, to go get some quality starters at the big man position. You know what I mean? Like, they need some things that can fill the holes for them. They have the faces and the names with Brown and Tatum. Have a solid heart and soul guy like Marcus Smart. You have Peyton Pritchard, who's a nice young guy who can come off your bench and do a couple of things. Aaron Nesmith still is a young sharpshooter in this league, and hopefully he can develop. Certain times and stretches, Grant Williams can do some things. Robert Williams could potentially be a starting big man in his league. If he isn't your starter big man, he's an incredible off the bench guy. Now you bring in Horford, who's familiar with you guys, and can be a voice for Robert Williams on a game-to-game basis. And now you can have some money where you can spread around. You know what I mean? If there is a starting center out there that you really believe in or that you want, whether it's a Cody Zeller, whether it's a Kelly Olynyk, bringing him back since they are already bringing guys back. There's guys out there that won't be max money, but that can help the Celtics. And I got the free agents in front of me. You know what I mean? They had it's names out here. It's names out here. You can bring Fournier back. Like I said, Cody Zeller is an unrestricted free agent. Kelly Olynyk will be an unrestricted free agent. You got guys like Paul Millsap. Serge Ibaka has a player option. Don't know if he's going to probably opt out after the back surgery. Then you have PJ Tuckers, Doug McDermott's, JaMychal Green's with a player option. Benelitza, Avery Bradley. I don't think they barely would bring him back. Tice will come back. Nerlens Noel is a free agent. There's guys out here where you can put the pieces together to give yourself a nice team with some depth and some talent around Brown and Tatum. Bobby Portis has a player option. There are some names out here. TJ McConnell. You know what I mean? TJ McConnell reminds me of a Boston Celtics point guard. Real gritty. You know what I mean? He's gonna be a hot commodity out there, but just another name. There's some guys out here who aren't going to blow you away with their name, but when you put them on a team like the Celtics, who already have two dynamic wings that'll carry the load offensively, you put the proper role pieces around them, and there's some guys, even like some Otto Porters, some guys that just may want to take a little short one-year deal to prove themselves. Victor Oladipo coming off an injury. There's some situations out here where the Celtics don't have to blow all of their money or spend $30 million on a player to be better. They just don't have to do it. So it's going to be real interesting. Like I said, I'm very proud and happy to see that Brad Stevens went out and made a move that was going to impact this team drastically. Like I said, it gives them plenty of options, plenty of different looks. The next step for them is to hire a head coach. And I'm going to be honest with you. I think that you can already pencil Rick Carlisle in there. Former Boston Celtic guy. It just makes total sense for me. It just makes total sense that Rick Carlisle goes there. Good reputation as a coach. I know that they were talking about, the Boston Celtics wanted to open up their coaching candidacy and, not to make it anything crazy, but they wanted to interview some black head coaches, get some black head coaches some opportunity and everything, because we know how, not Boston and everybody in Boston, but there's been certain situations with racism in the arena and the facility or just around Boston in general. But taking that out, and I love that. You know what I mean? Give a black coach opportunity. Of course, I'm always with that. But I think for this Boston Celtics team, with the position that they're in, what they just did, the talent that they have, Rick Carlisle is a guy who has some experience I wouldn't be mad at. You know what I mean? I'm never going to tell you not to hire a black coach and give somebody new an opportunity like a Chauncey Billups or anything like that. But Rick Carlisle is a guy who I think would be nice with them. You know what I mean? Bring some different shit in there for Tatum and Brown. all of that isolation basketball and different things like that. But we'll see, because he just got out of a situation where Luka commanded the ball, and it was so, you know, we'll see. But I do think the Boston Celtics are on the right track. I think Oklahoma City is on the right track. Again, you know, both teams really put themselves in a position to open up the door of opportunities and flexibility, which, if you know me, that's my favorite thing to have. I think that's one of the best assets that you can have as a team, is flexibility, and, you know, opportunity. You know what I mean? Just like, you can bring in a contract now. You know what I mean? You have picks, and you can parlay 2 picks together with a solid player, and you can go make a big splash that nobody saw coming. You can, you know, you can go out and be, you know, players in the free agent market. You know, especially in a class like this where there's not really headliners. DeMar DeRozan is, you know, probably the headline name and things like that. But for a team like the Celtics, you don't really have any interest in DeMar DeRozan. So you got guys who are out here trying to prove themselves and maybe get some type of role or some type of situation. And I think that's the perfect time for a Celtic-type team to become buyers, where you can go and try to get an Otto Porter for a little short-term deal because he wants to prove himself. You can go try to go get a Cody Zeller, you know, bring back Olynyk. It's just a lot of names out there in this class that doesn't require you to spend $30 million a year. And I think for teams like Boston, for teams like Portland, for teams like Dallas, this is the type of type of free agency class where you can get better. You can get better without blowing yourself, shooting yourself in the foot. Because a lot of teams have this thirst, and they feel like they need a name, and they need a splash. They need something so big and dramatic to happen, when we've seen so many years over and over that it's all about fit. I can take 3 names and put them all on one paper like OKC did with Paul George, Russell, and Carmelo. Won't necessarily mean it's going to work. You know what I mean? We can put names and shit together and just throw it all on a piece of paper and say we're going to win. But it doesn't mean nothing. It's all about fit. So sometimes you sacrifice a name like Kemba, and you go out and you may get somebody that doesn't have the name or the brand that he has, but they fit your team better. And it's all about that. It's a puzzle, and you got to make sure the pieces fit. And once the pieces fit, you give yourself a chance to be a competitive basketball team. And I think the Celtics are doing that. I think the Thunder are doing that with the picks, because like I said, I can bet my house almost that they won't use every single pick. So, as always, I'm your host, Pee Wee the Plug. I will see y'all soon, because we still have a lot to talk about. Shout out to my Celtic and Thunder fans. I'm going to take this sip for y'all. Cheers. As always, I'm out.